So hello and welcome back to SJ Cartier Limited Convos. And today I'm going to touch on the topic of tasers being issued to prison officers to be used on prisoners in what they will call a violent situation. And this was brought to my attention yesterday actually by watching This Morning and seeing that Nick Ferrari and Camilla Tominey, who were questioned on this topic, were saying they can't believe why tasers haven't been issued yet, and basically being surprised that this is even being questioned, that the prisoners should be told about this or even have a discussion or understanding of why, and even have some input as to whether it should be input or not. And it quite shocked me that normal civilians who have never been to prison are saying that they believe it is useful for prison staff to have tasers. And also, from what I'm reading as well, they're also going to give them stab-proof vests and a variety of other items. So it's quite shocking to see that. So I'm going to read a couple little posts. So I'm going to read a post from the 28th of July first, and this is on the ITVX website I'm reading from. And it states, some prison officers are being equipped with tasers from today, Monday the 28th of July, following an attack at HMP Franklin in County Durham in April. The Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood has said she is determined to keep prison staff safe as the government aims to clamp down on record levels of violence. The taser trial follows an incident at HMP Franklin in April this year when Manchester Arena plotter Hasham Abedi targeted prison staff with boiling oil and homemade weapons in a planned ambush. 4 prison officers were injured, with 3 of them taken to hospital. Miss Mahmood has admitted this attack has sped up the trial of tasers, saying the incident has really forced the pace on further rollout of these measures. So from reading this, it was already going to be pushed out or in the plans of being pushed out, but because of this incident at HMP Franklin, they decided to bring it automatically into place into certain high security places. So specialist officers from the Operational Response and Resilience Unit based in Kidlington, Oxfordshire and Doncaster, South Yorkshire, will be the first to become equipped with tasers. Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood attended the base in Kidlington last Thursday when officers demonstrated how they would use tasers on violent inmates in scenarios where there is a significant threat to a safety, such as hostage situations or riots. The trial will run until enough data has been collected to determine if tasers should be more widely used, according to the Ministry of Justice, but Ms Mahmood said she hoped to have updates in the autumn. It comes after rates of assaults on prison staff reached record levels last year, rising by 13% in the 12 months up to December 2024. But also, I don't know if they're equivalating the more amount of prisoners they have in jail. So if there's more prisoners, there's going to be a higher rate, of course, possibly. Yeah. To December 2024, according to government data. There were also 10,496 assaults on staff in the 12 months to September 2024. How many assaults were they from staff to prisoners? A 23% increase from the previous 12 months, a new peak. The tasers will be worn by officers on their tactical vest in a secure holster, making the weapon visible to inmates as a deterrent, officers told Miss Mahmood last week. The Prison Officers Association said it welcomed the move, but added the government needed to address the roots of violence in jail. Address the violence first. The POA, the Prisoner Officers Association, will always support any initiative that will help protect our members, a spokesman for the trade union said. However, as welcome as the initiative is, we need to address the reason why prison officers need tasers in the first place. Violence in our prisons is out of control, and apathetic prison managers would rather put the prison regime before the safety of their staff. Okay, so looking from it, from this Prison Officers Association, they've actually coming from the right angle, and it seems again the government are trying to force something else, because they're saying they'd rather focus on the prison regime and actually cutting down on these assaults in the prisons, whether that's prisoner to prisoner or prisoner to officer. They want to cut that down and find the reason why it's happening and stop it from happening. Although they're happy to have the tasers because they feel that will help them with the deterrent of it. But preferably, they'd rather start at the problem, the source of the problem, which could actually be the life outside of jail, could be the source of the problem, is the source of the problem, but we're not on that at the moment. We urgently need action to address overcrowding, understaffing, drugs, and the other root cause of prison violence. So, after reading that, I was thinking, well, I didn't even read to the end of it, as you see, because I was quite surprised the angle the prison officers were coming from. But it's quite mad to see that government are forcing the tasers upon prisons because of an incident. And although this incident happened, they were still planning to put it in place. So what are the prison officers saying? Because they're the people that actually are managing the prisons. And I feel that's an association that's rooting for the prison officers. So that may not be actually prison officers within the service right now. That may just be a group of people that are associated to the prison. Could be even a group of governors who still don't really be on the wing. They're not like officers on the wing. And that's something I want to make out and make clear to a lot of people. When they say to these, they point out that it will be rolled out and it will be given to certain high, we call them Power Rangers because they come dressed as Power Rangers. So they say the specialist prison officers will come in. They are just the ones that come in with the shield, basically. We call them Power Rangers because they're all messed up. They've got shields. They come in ready. Like Power Rangers, they're like morphed. So that's what we call them. But to understand that these are actually just prisoners on the normal day wing. These are not prison officers that have come from anywhere out of the prison service. They are actually workers within the prison. So they are just normal day-to-day staff that they are supposedly qualified for this IR part of the job, if that makes sense. So understanding that you're giving this power to a normal prison officer at this moment in time is the problem for me. Because as I've put here, I've put some bullet points as to what my issues are. I don't believe the prison officers are qualified to be given this power. And what I mean by that is, as I'm trying to point out, these Power Rangers, these supposedly higher trained staff are normal day-to-day staff. And these normal day-to-day staff then go and get suited up for the ones that are qualified. Sometimes in prisons, people could just come in suddenly and they're able to put on Power Ranger suits. They are not actually qualified. We know this because you've just came in like a week ago. They're bringing you along for training. We understand that. So understand that if every personally trained officer is coming in with a taser and they are not actually qualified to handle this, what is classed as a weapon on the roads, if a normal day-to-day person was caught with that, it would be classed as a firearm. So to give a normal day-to-day person, because that's what I'm trying to get at as well, the qualified prison officers right now are not really qualified prison officers. And this is why now you are finding a lot more drugs coming in, a lot more assaults on prisoners and prison staff. Because the staff they are hiring are just normal day-to-day people who haven't got a criminal record. They may have to go through a couple fitness tests, health tests, a couple little tests here and there, but that's about it. From you've had a background check and you can keep your background clear, you can work in a prison. So understanding that everyday people could just go into this prison and get a job, no matter if it takes them 3 to 6 months to get in there, no matter the time frame it takes, they still can do the training and become a prison officer. And then they could come in on the first day and possibly be pushed into wearing a protective suit because there's a dangerous prisoner, and they've now got a taser. And the normal day-to-day staff who possibly may understand how to talk to this person, even though they are suited, they may act out of emotions, reactions, fear, excitement, anything. So should any prison officer be even qualified to hold a taser? Because from my experience as someone that's been to prison, some prison officers ain't qualified to be in the job, let alone to be able to say they're able to have weapons. They bully prisoners in there. They do. They have a mentality in there of how they treat you. And unless you've been to jail, you won't understand what I'm getting at. And it doesn't matter how comfortable we are. We could be allowed to smoke weed on the wing. They could come in and see us with phones. You could be out your pad all day. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. And that's what we forget sometimes as prisoners sometimes. And as a normal day-to-day person, that's something a day-to-day person wouldn't even understand because they haven't been in there. They haven't seen how prison officers will crowd someone and start beating on them for no reason. Because they're asking for food. Because they're asking for a phone call. Because they need to go to healthcare. Because they haven't been allowed to their religious services. For numerous reasons. And this is why I'm kind of glad that the Prison Officers Association have actually made that statement as well, that they'd rather focus on the regime, because there's a lot of things how the prisons are managed is the issue. And sometimes you can't blame the prison officers, some prison officers, because they're actually good people. They've come to do the job. They're not going to be easily swayed. They're not going to just let you get away with things. But they've come to make you have an easier life and do your time. And if you have an easier time and get what you're supposed to get, then that also will allow them to do their job to the best of their ability. So understanding regimes of how long prisoners are locked down, understanding how much education they get, or how much are they forced into workshops where there's no education, but it's a business for the prisons. Where do they actually sort out the issues that prisoners actually have that they complain to ombudsman regularly? So for even me, I've complained to prison ombudsmans and that numerous of times. I've reported staff members for assaulting me. They may be saying I assaulted them, but what about your assault on me? That's on camera. You had body-worn footage. Where's that footage gone? So understanding this is the power people have at the moment without tasers. Imagine the struggle it will be with the same regime and people with tasers. You'd hear that a lot more prisoners are getting injured and still nothing is happening. You will hear a lot more prison staff are getting assaulted because they threatened someone and they felt threatened because they've got a taser. How long does it take from that taser to come from only specially worn outfits to an everyday walking around the wing? And that's the kind of steps it seems like they're going, I'd say, because from once you accept it for them as a specialist reason for what you would call a dangerous situation, it's down to the prison officers now to clarify what is that dangerous situation. They could call anything a dangerous situation. They could call someone saying, I'm not banging up until I've spoken to my parents. They're in hospital. That could be seen as a dangerous situation. He doesn't have credit. You could make him get on the phone in the office, or you could send him to the chaplain or the imam. There's things you can do. Or it could be seen as a dangerous situation because he's not banging up and you want to go home. These are the problems. Are the prison officers even qualified at the moment, any of them, to actually manhandle a taser and keep the prisoners safe as well from it? That's my energy as well. What about the prisoners staying safe? Even for the officers, what if that gets taken off them? Because you're giving it to someone that can't actually manage it or handle it, and they've pulled it and it's just been snatched out their hand, knocked out their hand, a scramble. Now it's been used on them. What happens then? Just thoughts. As I said, abuse of power could be an also issue, as I pointed out there. I do believe it could be used my other point, could be used to threaten prisoners more in individual issues. So the same way they will threaten you to take your TV away, the same way they could say, oh, don't let's go and put the suit on and tase you. Which could cause another problem, because who wants to hear that? And you're already upset. You're already in jail. You already feel persecuted. You know you've done a crime. You're sitting here. There's even people that are in there that ain't committed a crime or are not guilty. What about them? They could end up getting tasered because they're upset that they shouldn't be there and they literally shouldn't be there. These are the threats that could happen because now you've given someone a power, and we know people will abuse power. All people abuse power in some way. We can't help it. It's a human nature. We abuse our power at times. And in those type of circumstances, if you ever look at one of my previous videos, I think it was a few shorts, where the police assaulted me, just to show you, like, that's people are trying to abuse their power. Trying to abuse their power. And you're in the right. So what could happen? What could happen? I actually got pepper sprayed then. Funny enough, in court, police officer talking about, oh, I think he would have enjoyed the taser, that's why we didn't taser him. So even just to think of the psychology of a police officer thinking like that in a normal day-to-day situation, what could happen in the prison where it's more intense for the prison officers and the prisoner? What could happen? And go on to my final point. If police can't be trusted with these weapons, should normal civilians who haven't been through as much training as a police officer has to go through, hasn't been through as many checks as a police officer has to go through, and the police officers can't be trusted with this, so how can a prison officer be trusted? It's quite confusing. So let me know what you think in the comments. Should prison officers be allowed to have tasers? And the main point of what's going on over the last couple of days is they've actually started saying they're going to ask the prisoners about what's going on, let them know why it's happening. And I'll read because this is why they were literally talking about it on ITV2. They was trying to say they don't feel like the prisoners have a right to even know why or how it should be used, and have a say whether they should feel like it should be used. I don't know why, because there's a lot of prisoners in there that don't cause problems. So how did they feel about seeing a prison officer walking around with a taser? How do they feel about seeing you've come in for what? Being over the limit while you're driving. It's your fourth offence, fifth offence. They've decided to send you to jail. You've come in, and on the wing you see someone getting tasered. How do you feel? How would they feel? So what about normal civilians? A lot of people think everybody in jail is a complete criminal. In fact, there's a lot of regular day people in there. Regular day people. So you'd be surprised on what you actually see if you've been there. So this was a report from actually yesterday on the 2nd. Inmates at Britain's toughest prison are to be reassured about the use of tasers over fears they might be triggered by the weapons, which I was trying to point out. Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood has authorised a new trial of tasers following a spate of vicious assaults, including knife and boiling water attacks in prisons. Guidance has been issued to officers at HMP Belmarsh, which is home to the Manchester Arena bomb plotter Hasham Abidi and Southport killer Axel Ruda Kubana. It instructs staff to explain the rollout of the devices and provide a reassurance to convicts unsettled by the scheme. They must tell them who will be carrying the devices and how they will be deployed, which is fair. So it sounds like not just anybody should be able to actually have the taser, but then, as I say, when you're in the prison, not enough staff, only these staff are in, they have to handle the situation. Will they care about who's trained and who should have it? I'm not 100% sure, because it doesn't happen now, for example. It then goes on to say some prisoners may find this trial unsettling, especially those who have had experience of police use of tasers in the community, and you're trying to rehabilitate them. And if you're trying to rehabilitate them, it's best to try bring them to a normal situation, even though it's prison and they know they're in prison. Try and make life as normal as it should be as outside, because that's how they are rehabilitated and that's how they get used to living a normal life. Please use the materials provided to help you talk to prisoners about this trial, answer their questions and provide reassurance. Under the trial, elite response teams and frontline staff in maximum security prisons are being issued with tasers and upgraded protective kit, including stab vests, helmets and reinforced gloves. So they don't feel this is what the issue was with me as well with this morning, as I say. They don't feel that it should be even taught to prisoners about. And if prisoners are the main cause to the problems that people want to say, then shouldn't they have an opinion of what is the best actions to help the prison service? And as we hear from the Prison Officers Association, shouldn't they have a point of view of what the issue should be? And if both the people that are actually in the prison, the prisoners and the prison officers, are agreeing that regimes need to be sorted, then shouldn't that be the most focus? And if you're deciding as the government to take it more serious and just bring in action now, then shouldn't the prisoners be made aware of this? Because let's say prisoners don't even know when it can be used and they do something and now it's used on them. What happens then? Because then you could say the police, the prison officers abusing power, or you can say the no knowledge of why it was used is what caused that issue. So of course the prison officers need to be made aware of what officers are using it, when they will use it, how they will use it, and what type of taser, what it will feel like, how they react, what they should do, etc., etc., etc. So I'm quite glad they are actually allowing the prisoners to talk. I'm quite upset that they've still rolled it out. And I see there's a lot of talk as well. I see there's a lot of wording of high security prisoners, high security prisons, and certain other agencies they want to call them. But when you've been to prison, you understand these agencies, whatever rolls out over there will roll out in Cat A, Cat B, Cat C, Cat D. Cat D may get the blow. So understanding Cat A, Cat B, Cat C will be seen as high priority as well in their eyes. How long will it be till it's in every prison? Because if you're rolling out it to high security and something happens there, you're going to say, oh, we need it over here when things are happening over here. and it's just going to move on and it's going to move on, and they haven't actually thought about why they're bringing it in and what it can cause. So let me know in the comments, what do you think? Should prison officers be armed with tasers? Should it even be in discussion? Should prisoners be scared? So thank you for joining SJ Cartier Limited Convos today, and I hope you have a good day.